Those words still echo in my head like a thunderclap on a clear day. Hi, I am Sarah, and if you're rewatching this, buckle up. Because what happened on my wedding day in Nashville, Tennessee, wasn't just drama. It was the kind of truth that shatters illusions and rebuilds them stronger. Imagine the fairy lights twinkling, the flowers blooming just right, and then, bam. Everything you thought you knew about your family unravels in front of 200 guests. Before we get into the heart of it, though, hit pause for a second. Where are you tuning in from? Drop a comment below. Your country, your city. Are you in bustling New York, sunny LA, or maybe sipping coffee in a quiet Seattle suburb? I love hearing from you all. It makes these stories feel like we are sharing secrets over wine. All right, let's dive in. Picture this. The air thick with jasmine from the garden venue, laughter bubbling up like champagne. It was supposed to be perfect, but perfection? That's just a pretty lie we tell ourselves. My name is Sarah Thompson, or it was before I became Sarah Hayes. I grew up in a leafy suburb outside Nashville, the kind where pickup trucks outnumber sports cars and everyone knows your business before you do. My fiancé, Jake, was my high school sweetheart. Tall, with that easy grin and calloused hands from fixing engines at his family-esque garage. We met at a bonfire party our senior year, me in cutoff jeans, him with a guitar slung over his shoulder. 10 years later, here we were, rings picked out, vows scribbled on napkins during late-night drives. The wedding was our dream pieced together on a budget. Jake's folks, Tom and Linda Hayes, hosted the rehearsal dinner at their ranch-style home on the outskirts. Tom a quiet type, retired mechanic with stories etched in his laugh lines. Linda? She's the glue, baking pies that win county fairs, fussing over every detail like it was her own big day. They adored me from day one, calling me their bonus daughter. No red flags there, just warm hugs and inside jokes about Jake's terrible two-step. My side? That's where the pretty picture starts to crack. Mom and Dad, Evelyn and Robert Thompson, were the picture of Southern hospitality. Dad, with his salt and pepper hair and that booming voice from years selling real estate, always the center of any room. Mom, elegant in her pearls, a former school teacher who could charm a snake. They threw the engagement party at our old Victorian house on Elm Street, crystal glasses clinking under chandeliers we'd strung up ourselves. To Sarah and Jake, Dad toasted, eyes misty. May your love be as endless as Tennessee summers. But even then, I caught the whispers. Aunt Clara, Mom's sharp-tongued sister from Memphis, pulling me aside in the kitchen. Your mama's been on edge, honey. Something about old letters. I laughed it off. Wedding stress, right? Uncle Bill, Dad's golf buddy, clapping Jake on the back too hard, muttering about family skeletons. Normal stuff, or so I thought. Enter my best friend, Mia Reynolds. We've been thick as thieves since kindergarten. Her with wild curls and a laugh that fills rooms, me with my straight-laced planner vibes. She was my maid of honor, the one who'd seen me through heartbreaks and triumphs. Mia knew Jake like a brother, crashing our movie nights with popcorn and sarcasm. If he screws up, she'd say, I'll bury him in the backyard. We all chuckled. She was family. No secrets there. Or so I believed. The guest list swelled to 200. Jake's rowdy cousins from Chattanooga, my sorority sisters flown in from Atlanta, neighbors who'd watched me grow up. Emotions ran high, tears at the dress fitting, where Mom pinned the lace just so, her hands trembling a little. You'll be the most beautiful bride, Sarah. Pride swelled in my chest. This was it. Love, legacy, the whole white dress fantasy. What was at stake? Everything. My parents' reputation in our tight-knit town, where gossip travels faster than fireflies at dusk. Jake's trust in blending our worlds. And me, my heart, fragile as spun glass, betting it all on forever. Visually, it was magic. The venue, a rustic barn on the Cumberland River, draped in ivory linens and mason jars of wildflowers. Sunlight filtered through oak branches, casting golden pools on the wooden floors. Guests in sundresses and seersucker suits milled about, the scent of barbecue ribs mingling with fresh-cut grass. Jake looked dapper in his gray suit, tugging at his tie like it was a noose. I slipped into my gown, a simple A-line with lace sleeves, in the bridal suite, Mia zipping me up while humming our old prom song, It felt normal, blissful even. Dad walked me down the aisle that morning in his pressed tux, arm linked with mine, whispering, "Proud of you, kiddo." Mom dabbed her eyes from the front row, fanning herself with the program. Jake's grin lit up when he saw me, that boyish spark undimmed by years. Vows exchanged under a floral arch, rings sliding on with promises of in sickness and health. The kiss, soft, lingering, drew whoops from the crowd. Cake cutting, first dance to Sweet Home Alabama. Laughter, toasts. It was the wedding we'd pinned on every board. But beneath the joy, tension simmered like heat under a closed lid. Mom's smile faltered when Aunt Clara mentioned old family albums over mimosas. Dad's grip tightened on his whiskey glass during Jake's father's speech about building legacies. Mia shot me a look across the tables, concern flickering in her brown eyes, but I waved it off. Wedding jitters, nothing more. Little did I know the stakes were sky high, not just a marriage, but the unraveling of truths buried deeper than Tennessee roots. Love hung in the balance, fragile as a veil. Family pride teetered on the edge. And reputation? In a town like ours, one whisper could topple it all. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in pinks and oranges, I raised my glass for the maid of honor as toast. Mia stood, microphone in hand, her curls catching the light. The room hushed, expectant. That's when it started, the first thread pulling loose. The clink of silverware faded. Forks paused midair. All eyes on Mia as she cleared her throat, that familiar sparkle in her eyes turning sharp, like a knife edge catching sunlight. "Sarah," she began, voice steady but laced with something heavier. "You've always been the rock. The one who plans every picnic, every road trip, without a single loose end. And Jake, man, you've got the patience of a saint putting up with her color-coded sock drawer." Laughter rippled through the barn, light and easy. Jake shot her a mock glare, squeezing my hand under the table. I smiled, warmth spreading in my chest. This was Mia, turning nerves into gold. But then her gaze flicked to my parents, seated front and center. Mom straightened in her chair, pearls glinting like warning beads. Dad's easy grin tightened at the corners. "You two," Mia continued, gesturing to us, "are proof that love isn't about perfection. It is about showing up, flaws and all." A nod to Jake's family, Tom chuckling into his napkin, Linda beaming. Then softer, almost too soft for the mic. "And Sarah's family, well, they've taught her that some flaws are worth hiding." The words hung there, innocent enough on the surface. But the room shifted. A few heads turned. Aunt Clara's eyebrows arched like drawn bows. I felt it first in my gut, a twist, cold and insistent. What did she mean? Mia's eyes met mine, not playful now but pleading, like she was handing me a lifeline wrapped in thorns. Whispers started at the back tables, soft as rustling leaves. "Did she say hiding?" someone murmured. Jake leaned in, breath warm on my ear. "You okay, babe?" I nodded, forcing a laugh. Just Mia being Mia. But the layers peeled back slow, deliberate. As dessert plates circulated, lemon tarts dusted with powdered sugar, tart enough to pucker lips, the comments crept in like fog off the river. Uncle Bill, 3 whiskeys deep, cornered Dad by the bar. I caught fragments over the string quartet's lazy twang. "That mess from 95? You think it has buried?" Dad's face flushed, a rare crack in his salesman polish. "Water under the bridge, Bill. Let it lie." But Bill's laugh barked out too loud. "Bridges flood, Rob. Ask your brother." My brother, Mark, the ghost in our family photos, cropped out after he skipped town a decade ago. Mom always said he was chasing dreams in California. No calls, no cards, just absence like a missing tooth you tongue absent-mindedly. I glanced at her now, fanning herself furiously, eyes darting to Aunt Clara, who was holding court at a nearby table. "Evelyn's always been good at sweeping," Clara said to a cluster of cousins, voice honeyed venom. "But dirt sticks, doesn't it? Especially when it is kin." Kin. The word landed like a slap. My cheeks burned under the fairy lights. Guests shifted uncomfortably, Jake's cousin Ellie, wide-eyed and whispering to her husband. My old sorority pal Jess, biting her lip like she knew more than she let on. The air thickened, Jasmine turning cloying. The river-s murmur outside now a distant roar in my ears. Mia hovered nearby, refilling her flute with too much fizz, shooting me glances that screamed, "Wait for it." Tensions layered on, each one heavier. During the bouquet toss, me blindfolded, giggling as petals rained down, Mom's voice cut through from the sidelines. "Careful, Sarah. Don't let it slip like everything else." Laughter followed, but it died quick. Jake's mom, Linda, paused mid-clap, brow furrowing. "Everything else?" she echoed softly to Tom. He shrugged, but his eyes, those kind, weathered eyes, narrowed toward my parents' table. Cochicho swelled like a storm front. An older neighbor, Mrs. Hargrove, leaned into her daughter. "Heard the Thompsons lost a fortune back when, well, you know." "Lost a fortune?" Our house was modest, sure, but solid. Dad's deals always closed. Or so I thought. Pride prickled my skin. Our family's name, whispered in church basements and PTA meetings, now fodder for side eyes. What was at stake? Not just cake and dances. My roots tangled and suspect. Jake's faith in us if this poison seeped in. And love, mine for my parents, fraying at the seams with every sidelong glance. The dance floor emptied a touch too soon. I pulled Mia aside by the dessert table, heart hammering. "What's going on? Those looks. It is like I am the punchline." Her face crumpled just for a beat. Regret, resolve, something fierce. "Sarah, I couldn't have let it fester. Not today." Before I could press, Dad approached, arm around Mom, their smiles armor-plated. "Everything all right, Peanut?" His voice boomed, but his hand trembled on her shoulder. Mom's eyes, usually so steady, darted like trapped birds. The quartet struck up a slow waltz, but the rhythm felt off, syncopated with unease. Jake drew me close, his cologne grounding me. "Ignore the noise. This is ours." But even his warmth couldn't chase the chill. Whispers chased us. That boy of theirs. The one who vanished. Money troubles they never owned up to. Each one a facade, sharp, twisting deep. Humiliation bloomed hot in my throat. The room, once alive with joy, now pulsed with unspoken accusations. And Mia? She watched from the shadows, Mike still clutched like a weapon, building to something I couldn't yet see. Then it broke. The quartet faded on a lingering note. Guests milled toward the exit for a smoke or a stretch, but Mia climbed the small stage again. No preamble this time. She tapped the mic, feedback screeching like a warning, and the barn fell silent. Utter. Even the crickets outside seemed to hold breath. "Folks," she said, voice cracking just enough to pull us in, "I need y'all's attention. For Sarah, my sister in all but blood." I froze mid-step, Jake's hand going rigid in mine. Mama's champagne flute slipped, shattering on the hardwood, glass shards glinting like fallen stars. Dad's face drained to ash. Aunt Clara smirked, but it faltered quick. 200 pairs of eyes locked on her. Mia's curls trembled as she inhaled, deep and ragged. Sarah S. spent her life building bridges. To Jake, to you all. But tonight, it is time to burn one down. For truth. The room inhaled with her. My pulse thundered. What truth? As she turned to my parents. "Evelyn, Robert, you've erased a hell of a woman, but you've lied to her, for years." Gasps rippled, chairs scraping back. Uncle Bill nodded slow, like he'd waited for this. Mom whimpered, "Mia, no," but Dad's hand clamped her wrist, silencing her. "See?" Mia pressed on, eyes blazing. "When Sarah was 10, her brother Mark didn't just leave for California. He ran. From you all. From the mess you dragged him into." Mess? My mind reeled. Mark, with his lopsided grins and comic books, vanishing overnight. Letters ID written, returned unopened. "Your folks," Mia said, voice dropping to that intimate hush. "They cooked the books. Dad's real estate deals? Shady as back alley poker. Embezzlement. Mark found out, tried to blow the whistle. They paid him off. hush money from the very pot they stole, sent him packing with threats wrapped in cash. The words detonated. Shock rippled outward. Forks clattered. A child whimpered. Jake's grip crushed mine, his whisper fierce. "Sarah?" But I couldn't look away. Mia held up her phone, screen glowing, a faded photo, Mark's face young and haunted, arm around a teenage me. This is from his email. Last week, he reached out, begging me to tell her. Before she says I do. She deserves the whole damn family. Mom sobbed now, open and raw, pearls clutched like rosary beads. Dad stood, face crumpling, not the booming salesman, but a man stripped bare. "We did it for her," he choked out. "To protect. The shame." Protect? From what, his crimes? The fortune lost because it was never his? Reputation in tatters? Pride gutted. The room spun, wildflowers blurring, lights haloing the horror. But Mia wasn't done. She turned to me, tears carving tracks down her cheeks. "Sarah, they hid Mark because he knew. And worse, they told him you were better off without the truth, that you'd crumble." Crumble? Me? The planner? The rock? Rage surged, hot and clarifying, mingling with the ache. Betrayal tasted metallic, sharp as blood. Then, the turn. Mia stepped down, Mike extended like an olive branch. "But Mark's coming back. Tomorrow. Clean slate. Because real family? It fights dirty, then forgives." Silence crashed down, thick as fog. Eyes wide, breaths held. A single clap, tentative, from Linda. Then Tom. Jake's cousins, Jess. The wave built, applause thundering, not mocking, but cathartic. Whoops, tears, hugs erupting like fireworks. Aunt Clara deflated, exposed in her glee. Uncle Bill hung his head, shame etching new lines. I stood there, veil askew, world tilting. The room didn't shatter me, it lifted. Truth, ugly and raw, had claws, but in that freeze, then roar, it freed us. The applause crashed over us like a summer downpour. Sudden, soaking, impossible to ignore. Hands slapped together in a rhythm that started shaky but built to a roar, drowning the river's whisper outside. I stood there, rooted to the barn floor, shards of Mom's glass crunching under my heels like brittle memories. Jake's arm wrapped around my waist, steady as an anchor, his breath ragged against my temple. "Breathe, Sarah, just breathe." But oxygen felt foreign, thick with the scent of spilled champagne and wilting roses. Faces blurred in the frenzy. Linda rushed the stage first, enveloping Mia in a hug that lifted her clean off the ground. "Bless you, girl, for having the guts we didn't." Tom's nod was gruff, eyes wet as he clapped Dad on the back, not hard but firm, like sealing a deal between old foes. Jake's cousins whooped, fists pumping the air, turning shock into something almost celebratory. Ellie, the wide-eyed one, dabbed tears with her napkin, mouthing, "I'm so sorry," across the tables. Even Mrs. Hargrove, that pillar of neighborhood judgment, stood clapping, her stern lips curved in something like respect. But the silence before? That was the gut punch. For those endless seconds after Mia's last word, the barn held its breath. Forks frozen mid-air, a toddler's wail cut short by her mama's hand. Eyes, 200 of them, locked on my parents like spotlights on a stage gone dark. Mom crumpled into her chair, sobs heaving her shoulders, face buried in her hands. Pearls scattered across the linen, rolling like escaped tears. Dad loomed beside her, hands dangling useless at his sides, that booming voice reduced to a rasp. "Sarah, we never meant..." But the words dissolved, swallowed by the void. Shame etched his features, deep lines I'd never noticed, like cracks in fine china. Aunt Clara? Oh, she withered right there. Her smirk evaporated, replaced by a flush creeping up her neck, blotchy and telling. She shrank back in her seat, fingers twisting her napkin to shreds, avoiding every gaze that turned her way. The queen of whispers, now the fool exposed, her barbs about sweeping dirt boomeranging back, leaving her isolated in a sea of turned backs. Uncle Bill slunk to the bar, nursing a fresh whiskey alone, his earlier bravado curdled to regret. "Should we kept my trap shut," he muttered to no one, but we all heard. The room's pulse shifted, judgment flowed not just at my folks, but at the enablers, the stirrers who'd fanned the flames for sport. Tears came next, hot, unbidden, tracing paths down my cheeks. Not just mine. Jess from sorority days crossed the floor, pulling me into a fierce embrace, her whisper fierce against my ear. "You're unbreakable, Sarah. This changes nothing about you." Mia hovered close, her curls damp, eyes searching mine for forgiveness I didn't yet have words for. "I had to," she said simply. "For Mark. For you." I nodded, throat too tight to speak, but the nod said enough. Gratitude, tangled with hurt, blooming slow. The wedding? It didn't halt. No dramatic exits, no sirens wailing. Instead, the quartet struck up again. Soft, insistent, stand by me, weaving through the chaos like a balm. Guests surged forward, not fleeing, but closing ranks. Jake's dad hoisted a glass. To truths that set us free, and to the Hayes Thompsons, muddled but mighty. Laughter bubbled up, tentative at first, then real. Plates refilled, dances resumed, couples swaying with a new gravity, as if the air itself had cleared. Mom approached then, tentative as a fawn, her mascara streaked like war paint. "Sarah, honey." Her voice cracked, hands outstretched but not touching. I saw it all in her eyes, the years of swallowed secrets, the fear that one crack would flood us out. "We thought protecting you meant shielding the ugly. Mark, he was angry, young. We paid to make it go away. For the family name. For your future." Future. The word stung, laced with her sacrifices, skipped vacations to cover debts, smiles plastered over audits dodged. Dad joined her, voice gravelly. "I was a fool, kiddo. Greed blinded me. But losing you, that's the real ruin. The real." I pulled back, just enough to breathe. Hurt roared in my chest, betrayal's echo, but beneath it, a flicker. They weren't monsters, flawed, desperate humans, clutching at control in a world that slips. "You stole my brother," I whispered, voice raw. "My truth." Tears mirrored hers, but Jake's hand on my back grounded me. "We'll talk. All of us. No more shadows." She nodded, collapsing into me, our gowns tangling like roots seeking soil. What came after? The reception stretched into twilight, stars pricking the sky like hesitant applause. Mark's flight landed at dawn, his email a bridge we decrossed together. No handcuffs, no headlines. Dad's mess from 95 had faded with time, statutes run out, but the scar tissue remained. Relations, strained but stitching. Aunt Clara slinked out early, her invitations henceforth sparse. Uncle Bill sent flowers the next week. A note scrawled, "Sorry for the salt and wounds." Mom and Dad stepped back, therapy sessions booked, books balanced with a clean slate accountant. Pride humbled, reputation. In our town, gossip peaked then ebbed, replaced by murmurs of resilience. The marriage? Stronger, forged in fire. Jake and I slipped away at midnight, barefoot on the riverbank, toes in cool mud. "We were not them," he said, kissing my knuckles. "We'll build honest." Vows renewed in whispers, under a moon that judged no one. Family expanded, not fractured. Mark's call came at breakfast, voice thick. "Sis, I'm home." Tears then too, but joyful ones. The wedding followed through, not flawless, but real. Cake smeared on cheeks, dances till dawn. A union not of illusions, but of survivors. Consequences rippled gentle. Mia got a promotion at her marketing gig, word of her courage spreading like good news. Linda baked apology pies for Mom, crust flaky with forgiveness. And me? I shed the veil of naivete, stepping into womanhood with eyes wide, heart scarred but open. The room's freeze thawed to warmth, its clap a promise. We didn't cut ties, we wove them tighter, threads of truth binding what shame sought to sever. In the end, the drama didn't destroy. It delivered us home. As the last notes faded, guests drifting like leaves on the current, I caught Dad's eye across the emptying barn. He raised his glass, empty now, but hopeful. I lifted mine. To what ifs, turned to what nows. The night air cooled, carrying away the weight. We were free. Months have blurred since that night in the barn, but the echoes linger like the faint scent of jasmine on an old dress. I sit now on our porch swing in Nashville's suburbs, Jake's hand in mine, watching fireflies dance in the dusk. That wedding, my wedding, wasn't in the fairy tale scripted in glossy magazines. It was raw, messy, a mirror held up to the cracks we'd papered over for years. And in that shattering, I learned something profound. Secrets don't protect. They poison. They fester in the dark, turning love into a battlefield where trust is the first casualty. Think about it. How many of us carry those hidden weights? A family's hushed scandal, a sibling's unspoken exile, a parent's quiet regret. We build walls around them, thinking they'll hold, but walls crumble under truth's weight. Mia's revelation? It wasn't just about Mark or Dad's missteps. It was a wake-up call. Love demands honesty, even when it stings, even when it freezes a room solid before the applause breaks through. In that freeze, I felt exposed, vulnerable as a raw nerve. But the clap? That was catharsis. It said, "You were not alone. We've all got scars." Marcus' return the next day was tentative, like testing ice on a pond. He pulled up in a beat-up truck, hair longer, eyes wiser, hugging me fierce under the same oak where we'd played as kids. "Missed you, squirt." No accusations flew. Just stories swapped over coffee, gaps filled with tears and tentative laughs. He forgave quicker than I expected. Turns out time heals what pride wounds. Mom and Dad? They were mending too. Weekly dinners now, no topics off limits. Dad sold the real estate gig, coaching Little League instead. His way of atoning, building futures without shortcuts. Mom volunteers at the library, sharing books on forgiveness like they were lifelines. Our marriage? It is deeper for the dive. Jake and I argue sometimes about bills, about in-laws, but we talk it out, no shadows lurking. That night taught us, weddings aren't endpoints, they relaunches, into the unknown, armed with truth. And the town? Gossip faded like morning mist. Folks nod at us in the grocery aisles, a quiet respect in their eyes. "Heard y'all weathered a storm," one said last week. We did, and came out shining. But here's the provocative part. What if more weddings had that mic drop moment? What if we invited truth to the table alongside the cake? Families might fracture less, heal more. Love could root deeper, unburdened by lies. It is messy, sure. Humiliation as bite is sharp. But regret? That's the real thief, stealing years we can't reclaim. I wouldn't trade that chaos for a sterile, perfect day. It gifted me wholeness, a brother back, parents humanized, a bond with Jake forged in fire. As I reflect porch swing creaking under us, I wonder about you. What's your hidden truth? The one that whispers in quiet moments? Maybe it's time to let it out. Not in a barn full of guests, but in a comment below. Share a sliver. Did this story hit home? Ever had a family secret blow up? Or what is your take on weddings gone wild? Drop it in the comments. Let us keep the conversation going. Your words might spark someone's courage. And if these tales of real-life twists pull you in, like they do me, hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell for more stories that unpack the heart's hidden corners. Thanks for joining me on this ride. Until next time, remember, truth might freeze the room, but it always thaws to something stronger. Take care out there.